Grandma suddenly has knees again, and she's grinding up on that floor. She's tearing ass.
Nana's knees are back, everyone.
How Nana got her knees.
How Nana got her knees.
2, 3, 4.
These boys only want the best stuff. They want the cream of the crop. They don't want none of that Michael Bay shit. They want the shit that pops. Oscar bait, black and white. Maybe something French. If it's got more than one explosion, honey, put that shit on the bench. Oscar Wieners, Oscar Wieners, Oscar Wieners. These boys are the Oscar Wieners.
Yum, yum.
Oscar Wieners.
Welcome to Oscar Wieners,
Yeah.
the only show on the internet where Hollywood's biggest night is in love with its rival slash frenemy, but it just doesn't want to say so because it's 400, 300 years ago or whatever, and that's not really appropriate. That's not accepted culturally, socially,
It's ancient
etc.
history. That's ancient history. We're
Yeah.
behind that now. We're past that now. Our rivalry with the... Who's our rival podcast, do you think?
What's the biggest one? Like Doughboys, I think they make a lot of money, and
Do
like
they do
people,
movies?
a lot of people listen. I don't really know. I've never really listened
Okay.
to it, unfortunately.
Well, you know
So,
what, Doughboys? Fucking keep your head on a swivel, okay?
I'm orchestra.
Nice. And I'm Wolfgang.
Nice. And this is a pod. No, I'm Michael Husander, and this is a podcast where every week we pick a Best Picture winner at random and try to figure out if it's Best Picture worthy. And this week we were talking about the 1985 Best Picture winner, Amadeus.
Amadeus. This movie
Um,
seems a lot older than it is. Like 1985 kind of throws me through a loop.
yeah, I get that. It's like not even 40 years old. It's gonna be 40 next, or I guess no, it came out in 1984, so I guess it is 40 years old this year.
Oh, so I can
Um,
finally drive, I guess.
Amadeus is, we have a returning director, Milos.
Oh, Cuckoo's Nest?
Yeah.
Milos, you rat fink.
So
You slippery little devil.
9 years after fucking Cuckoo's Nest, he comes back with Amadeus and absolutely wins Best Picture. And the story of this movie is very simple on paper. Well, I guess it's not like complicated as presented either, but it's the story of, what's his fucking first name? Antonio Salieri, played by F. Murray Abraham, who, it's sort of like a flashback story where we meet Salieri when he's like in his 70s or 80s or something. He's very old. And he's saying how he killed Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. And then like a priest comes and is like, confess your sins. And he's like, all right, let me tell you the story. As you said, you rat fink.
Thank you.
He says that to the priest.
He does,
And
yeah.
then we get like the full story of their relationship over the course of like, I don't know, maybe like 10 years, 15 years, of Salieri resenting Mozart and Mozart absolutely burning up the where were the Italian
Austria, I think.
orchestral operatic scene.
Mozart was big on the scene, for
Yeah.
sure. He kind of dominated.
He had eyeliner. He was wearing like a spiked wristband. He was a
Yeah.
scene boy.
He had a powdered wig. You know how punks do.
What are your okay? Have you ever seen this movie before?
No, never in my life. I did. I think it should be noted that I watched the director's cut. It was the
I
only one that was available to me.
Same. I did you rent this?
Yes.
And I also watched the director's cut. The original cut's like 20 minutes shorter, but yeah, I also watched the director's cut, which is like 3 hours even.
From what I understand, I think they cut boobs.
Excuse me.
Like nudity was removed.
Are you serious?
I believe so, yeah.
Oh, that
And
seems really good though.
Yeah.
I mean, not because there's boobs in it, but like
Well,
I'm like, how do you cut that scene?
for whatever reason, you might enjoy it. I don't
And
know.
what was your experience watching it for this
Um,
podcast?
Let me reference my notes.
Okay.
I think that this movie is almost completely devoid of charm, character, humor, intrigue, humanity, and meaning. And I think if Mozart could see this, you'd find it absolutely abhorrent.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
I really did not enjoy it.
I
for even
love
one
I
iota.
love this movie.
Okay.
I think this movie is it's an absolute banger.
I mean, tell me why, because
It
there's
rips, fucks, slaps, and owns.
I mean, the only good thing about the Broadway melody is that eventually it ended. And the only thing good about Amadeus is honestly don't know. It just keeps on going.
So this movie is based on a play by Peter Schaefer.
Great.
I mean, obviously the historical facts of like these two guys, doing music, whatever, for the most part are historically accurate. But like the actual conflict between Mozart and Salieri was like kind of fictionalized for this movie. Like they knew each other, and
So this is a biopic in the absolute loosest sense of the word.
like after Mozart was died, Salieri, they just started a rumor that was like, hey, do you hear that guy actually like resented Mozart and like poisoned him? And Salieri's like, no, I fucking didn't.
I guess I don't mind. I guess I don't mind that it's not totally based in reality.
Yeah.
But I also feel like, what did I gain from it? Like, if I didn't gain a deeper understanding of who Mozart was, why did I watch it? Why did I sit here for 180 minutes?
What do you think of the frame sort of like Salieri as an old guy narrative? Is that interesting to you? Like when it starts, are you just like, because he's obvious, the movie starts and Salieri's like, I killed Mozart, I killed Mozart. So they take him to like a psychiatric institution.
Mhm. I think it's just kind of it's fine. I think it's just a convenient framing device for Milosh to employ.
Right.
Because it kind of gives him an out of being like, oh, this is kind of just Salieri's ramblings, and who knows if this is really true, but this is kind of like maybe what happened. Who knows? We're
Right.
playing around with it, and then we're making it silly and whatever. Like, fine. Like, I don't really think about it much beyond that. I don't really find it inherently interesting,
Hmm.
but I don't find it inherently bad either.
Right.
What I
think it
find
slaps.
bad is that Salieri and Mozart are the two most grating characters put to cinema. Salieri is an incel ass, and Mozart is just a whiny little guy with a laugh of cold. I lost my shit anytime he laughs. I can't tell you how many times I've told this movie to shut up while I was watching it.
Yeah. Mozart played by Tom Hulce. Hulce. Um, he's like, he opens
Yeah,
like his
that's-
whole mouth.
Oh my god.
I think it's a really good movie about why children shouldn't be prodigies, because it makes them
Okay.
like like it makes them like their
Yeah.
their adolescence is just like protracted. Their
Yeah.
development is arrested. They are
Nice.
just like the whole movie, like if he doesn't get his way, and until like near the end where I think like he actually starts like maybe growing up a little bit, but for the most of the movie, if like he doesn't get his way, he like throws kind of a tantrum and starts like
Yeah.
pouting, and it's like, sir, you're like an adult.
Yeah, the only time he grows up is when he's about to be dead.
And the movie does a really good job of making him so insufferable that you're like, actually, maybe I do want Salieri to kill his ass.
I mean, yeah, I guess they do a good job. They
This guy
succeeded.
sucks.
Like, I don't know, but I don't think I give them points for wanting to create this monstrosity on purpose. You know what I mean? Like, just because you did it
Mozart-
intentionally doesn't mean it's good.
Tom Hulce's performance as Mozart is the greatest villainous charismatic performance since Heath Ledger's Joker.
I'll reach through the screen and throttle you, I think. I
Um,
I disagree. I think this rivalry sucks ass. I think they're not. I think a good rivalry stems from two people who are equal competitors. Mozart blows Salieri out of the water, and Salieri is just like groveling and just clawing at any attempt to try and claim some of Mozart's greatness. It's so embarrassing. I feel like pity for this man, but I don't root for him. I don't like want him to succeed. I just don't care about his efforts.
See, I think why their rivalry is so good is because Mozart is like rarely ever like I wrote down that Mozart is never thinking about Salieri unless he's talking to him face to face or like his name gets brought up.
Yeah.
Like there's that great scene at like the party that Mozart brings his dad to, I think. Is it that scene? Or maybe his dad leaves. But anyway, Mozart and his wife, Constance, played by Elizabeth Berridge, they're at like this like fucking like cabaret party or whatever it is where people are wearing masks and stuff. And Salieri like shows up and he puts on a mask and Mozart's like fooling around the piano, like making fun of like other composers
Yeah.
and like people are throwing out names. And Salieri, like Mozart's like, who should I do next? And Salieri's like, do Salieri. And it's
Like,
like
what a
you're like
fucking loser.
you're like a fucking like you're like you want to get domed so hard. Like it's crazy. Like you're like digging your own grave. Like you're making conflict where there doesn't have to be any. And it's like
Yeah.
I love that Salieri's hatred for Mozart is like mostly in his head. Like obviously Mozart's unlikable and like
Yeah.
annoying, but it's like Mozart isn't doing anything to like I guess Mozart makes some digs at Salieri about like his music and like whatever, but like that's just he's like an asshole to everybody. It's not like he's doing it specifically to Salieri because he sees Salieri as like an actual competitor.
Well, the reason Salieri doesn't like Mozart is because he's one, a devout Catholic, and he always prays to God, and he's like, God, just make me please just make me the musician that I was born to be. Give me your voice. And meanwhile, he still recognizes Mozart as the greatest composer to ever live, and he's like, God, what the fuck? Why did you give this dude this incredible talent? He sucks. Look at him. If you
Yeah.
heard his laugh,
He like fucking burns. He takes his like big crucifix off the wall and throws it in the fire, and then he's like, I'm actually gonna kill Mozart. I'm gonna kill God who's
I
working
guess
through this man.
I guess that's pretty metal.
The payoff of the God thread as we've established
Eh.
of like the last shot of the movie, which is like Salieri being wheeled through this like psychiatric hospital. You have these people who are like deeply ill and disturbed who are just watching him like be rolled by in a wheelchair, and he's like, "I'm the patron saint of amateur like
Mediocrity.
mediocrity." There it is.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is sick.
It's just comical to me that Salieri is constantly referring to Mozart as this complicated genius, and he's like, "Oh my God, this man is brilliant." And then it just pans to Mozart just comically being a buffoon. Like I just don't. Certain things just don't add up in a way that I can understand.
But I think that's what Salieri also pisses him off so much is like there's the scene early on when he wants to get like a look at Mozart who's performing at like this thing.
Yeah.
And he finds him and he's like he finds Mozart and he's like chasing his future wife and they're like he's like kissing her like boobs. She doesn't have her shirt off, but he's kissing like her top boob. And like he's like
Nice.
he's like saying words backwards. He's saying like I fart a lot, but he's like saying it backwards and because he wants her to like spell it out. Like
Yeah, he's being a dumbass.
and Salieri is like, that's Mozart? That little fucking dumbass? God speaking through that little stupid idiot?
He works in mysterious ways. He
Yeah.
surely does.
What do you think of like I had this thought like basically the whole movie, I'm like, wow, kind of rich people back then, like the royal court, who is like mostly who these guys are performing for. Like the operas are put on for like the royal people or whatever. They're going to a lot of operas, and personally, I don't think I could sit through an opera.
I mean, even the emperor wasn't able to sit through an opera. He was like
Yeah.
bored by Mozart. She's like, I need something else, Mozart.
Yeah.
Give me something else.
What do you think
Yeah.
about the scenes though? Are you like, oh, this like they do go on like a little bit long?
I guess it helps me understand Mozart's headspace. So I guess it's a good framing device in that sense. Um, because like, after his father dies, you get to see the aftermath. You see like the
He
dark
makes
and
like
dreary
Don
play.
Giovanni or whatever.
I just didn't find it enjoyable. Like the fucking play that they were doing with the parrots. What is that? Is that the magic flute?
Is that near the end? I think yeah, the
Yeah.
magic flute is near the end.
The guy's dressed as a parrot and he's like, I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
Well,
This guy has to wrap up soon.
Salieri like ganked it so that there was like he rigged it so that there was only like 5 performances total.
Yeah.
Um, and he's like, but I went to every one of those 5 performances. Um,
So it's like, what are you doing? Are you guys friends? Like, it's because like he clearly wants to see his genius flourish, but he also wants to be better than him. It's this weird, complicated relationship where I'm like, I'm not really able to follow what's going on here. The plays, I'm sure, were great in their time. I don't really care for them much. I love his music.
yeah, his music's beautiful.
Yeah.
What can you say? Hot take, Mozart good.
Yeah, Mozart good, for sure.
At the end, where like after his dad dies, Salieri dresses up in the costume that Mozart's dad wore to like that like cabaret party or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Um, he wears the exact same costume and visits Mozart and is like, write me a what is it like a death?
A death song, basically.
Yeah, I didn't know what it was obviously because I'm not like super fluent in classical music. But then when it played at the end, when after Mozart dies, I was like, oh, it's that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
But like his plan is so he's just such a needy loser. Like he just shows up at Mozart's door and says, "Hey, make a death song." His plan is to commission Mozart to write this song. Then he's going to kill Mozart, and then the song is going to play at his funeral, but also Salieri is going to take credit for it. What if why?
Right.
Why the fuck like that's your legacy that deep down forever you'll always know that you never created your magnum opus? That sucks. Why would you want that for yourself?
yeah,
I don't know. I just don't get it.
yeah.
I don't know. Mozart would probably watch this and have a conniption. He'd be like, what the fuck is this? This is not my life.
He would be blown away that movies exist.
Yeah, but what a stab in the back to be, one, blown away by the fact that movies exist, and then two, realize that someone made a shitty interpretation of your life.
Shitty.
You think he'd be like, oh yes, this really encapsulates me?
Maybe he was a really humble god. Maybe he'd be able to look at himself represented like outside of his body and he'd be like, oh yeah, actually I've been an asshole. And maybe he has a little Scrooge moment where he turns.
Don't
Where he
fucking
goes out and
Dickens
throws
me.
little tiny Tims some coins and he says,
Don't
go
you
buy yourself a turkey, little boy.
don't you dare Dickens me on this. Don't you dare.
The sort of third act of the movie, I feel really bad for Mozart. Like he's like he's like poor because he was so hubristic that he like wouldn't take like the sort of like court royal jobs of like being like a person's cursed personal like music guy like Salieri.
Yeah.
So he just like kind of ends up like in squalor a little bit. I mean, he has that nice
Yeah,
apartment that he's somehow is able to pay for. I don't really,
I don't
but
know. But yeah, he's flat broke.
yeah,
And they bury him in a mass grave.
yeah. And they
Which
throw some like
sucks.
fucking powder on him. I don't know what that's for. I
Yeah.
don't know if it's for like flies or it's for the smell or something, but yeah.
I don't know.
Like yeah, he was an asshole, but it's not like he was doing anything wrong really.
Yeah.
Salieri
Well,
anyway. Maybe it's simple, maybe I'm a fucking dumbass.
you're not, dude. You're a genius. You're a complicated genius.
Thanks, man. I'm a Mozart of myself. The final thing I think we need to talk about is the dictation scene.
Nice.
After
Hey,
the dick down dictation scene,
nailed it.
I think Salieri is gay, at least how this movie interprets him.
Wait, what?
I think he's in love with Mozart.
Oh shit. Okay, now we're getting into it.
'Cause then- 'cause-
I didn't pick up on that.
So after Mozart collapses at the magic flute performance, Salieri is the one who like brings him home, Mozart home to Mozart's apartment.
He blows
He,
on his
like,
magic
gets-
flute a little bit. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Huh?
Fine.
Yes.
Mozart's in bed. and yada yada yada. Eventually, Mozart's like, "Oh God, finish. I have to finish like this death song that this guy wants, which is Salieri, but Salieri obviously doesn't know it's Salieri.
My
So
fucking
then
song is due tomorrow.
Mozart's like on the verge of death,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Wait, let me quickly compose this death song." And it's so fucking good because Salieri's like, "Let me help you." And he starts
Yeah.
like writing down, he's like letting Mozart dictate the composition and Salieri's writing it down. And like it's the way they're going back and forth. I wrote the dictation scene as like a sex scene. It's like
Damn.
they're going back and forth. It's sort of the culmination of like all this tension. Um, they're going back and forth. Salieri's like, "You're going too fast." And Mozart's like, F, F, F. He's saying like fucking notes and shit. And like it's just so good. And he's like,
Honestly,
"Let me see." And then he shows it to him and he's like, "Good. Now on the second fret," or whatever the fuck he says. It's so good.
I like that.
Erotic,
I
hot.
like that reading. I like that interpretation of it for sure. Because you're not off base. There is something weirdly romantic about it, where like they're kind of coming together
Yeah,
metaphorically,
right. And
physically.
actually,
Yeah, and actually,
they don't say it, but it probably.
you can tell it's there.
Yeah, I also think like that scene is so the dramatic irony of it of like the next morning Mozart dies when like Mozart says to Salieri like I never thought like Salieri's like I think you're the as they're doing this he's like I think you're the most talented composer I've ever like heard. And Mozart's like I always thought you hated me and my work. And
Well,
like
he
they
does
almost like
hate him.
reach huh?
He hates him and not his work, basically.
Yeah. But then they reach like they almost like for like they sort of like come to an understanding and forgive each other and then he fucking dies and it's like Salieri's like fuck.
Well, yeah, it's
Like
kind of
you get
bullshit.
the sense
Like,
you get the sense that maybe Salieri would have like stopped torturing this man after that night, but then Mozart dies anyway.
it just makes it feel so trivial in the end. It's like, oh, actually, for just from talking to each other for 2.5 seconds, actually, we're pretty good friends now, and all that hatred that basically I based my entire life on and my life's goals on, it was really all for naught because this dude's actually kind of chill, and we could have been buds.
Fuck you, man.
I'm just
No,
saying.
I'm serious.
It
Fuck
just
you.
resolves so quickly and conveniently. It's like, yeah, dude, you gotta like build that. I don't know. It's just like it's a good scene to be sure, but I don't know. So we collabed on a music piece, so now we're
Don't just say
boys
it's a good
forever.
scene
They
to
were
be
mortal
sure.
enemies. Well, then why were they rivals to begin with? They should have just fucking talked for 2 minutes and they could have figured shit out.
But they weren't even rivals. I think it was more from Salieri's end that like he saw them as like rivals, but like
Yeah,
obviously
Mozart doesn't
Salieri
give a
would
shit
never be
about
a,
him.
yeah, exactly.
It's like Megamind and whoever the fucking other superhero is.
Doesn't like Brad Pitt voice that guy?
Yeah, the guy voiced by Brad Pitt.
I don't know. I love this movie. Obviously, I feel like if it's not clear by my enthusiastic ramblings, I think this movie rips.
And I love you and respect you for it, but
Thanks.
I humbly disagree.
Fine. I also like the little character trait, like the characteristic of like Salieri is like a little sweets guy. He always likes a little sweet thing. I think it's just like a fun little character thing. He's always like grabbing a little chocolate ball to stick in his mouth.
That was arguably the best part of the movie when he's talking about the little fucking pastries that he brought from Italy.
To Constance.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. And then she takes like another one while he's not looking. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all good shit.
I did want to try one of those things. Because in my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, what did they have for candy back then? I guess they had, like, everything was handmade and fancy.
Right. Better than One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So
I disagree, but also One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, like, you had the book. In both cases, like, this is not Milos is just fucking taking other people's shit. You can't do it, Milos. Not on my fucking watch.
I love the thread that's been established in this podcast now for half of what's going to be its existence of you hating adaptations. You hate them. You're like, make up your own fucking thing.
I don't hate them, but also I think you get a little bit of a demerit if you make an adaptation because it's not all your shit. You didn't come up
Right.
with the idea. I just love maybe I over romanticize the idea of this idea sprouted from my head and then we made it a reality. I just love that.
Yeah.
You can obviously have a movie that a great movie that's an adaptation. I'm not saying that doesn't exist. Like it
Yeah.
exists in many instances, but when it sucks, it makes it way worse in my mind. 'Cause it's like
I do
it's
think that's
bad,
true.
and you also didn't come up with it.
That's honestly a good point, especially like if the book's good and the movie's bad. It's like you had it right there.
Yeah, it was right
Did
there.
you not?
Man.
Did you forget to open the book?
In some cases, I feel like maybe they did.
Yeah.
Like they got to page 19 and were like, "Damn, this is crazy. I should make a movie about this," and then forgot to finish the book.
Yeah. Um, the last thing I'll say, because I always have to say something reminds me of Christopher Nolan. Um, this movie, I feel like this movie had to be on Nolan's mind for Oppenheimer because Robert Downey Jr.'s character reminded me so much of Salieri, where like he invents this whole fucking narrative in his
Oh,
head. And it's like, oh, Albert Einstein fucking walked past me because like Oppenheimer turned him against me. It's like, no, they were talking about the end of the world, way more important shit than you. And like Salieri's like, oh God, Mozart, he slights me every chance he gets. And it's like he's never thinking about you.
you know what? I could see that for sure. That's a good
Yeah.
observation. I bet you
Yeah.
he was watching Amadeus, that sneaky little Nolan.
Do you want to hear the other nominees for 1985? Do you have any final thoughts on Amadeus?
Nah, give me some alternatives for this thing. Let me see who was else in the
All
running.
right. Um, just FYI, Milos won Best Director that year,
How?
and F. Murray Abraham won Best Actor.
Okay.
Uh, thoughts or
I mean, he
you're
was good. I
pissed?
think they just like put him in a lot of makeup, honestly, and that made him best actor.
Sure.
I don't know. Obviously, F. Murray Abraham is a legend and incredibly talented, and I thought he was good in this. I didn't think he
Yeah.
was like transcendent.
Oh, I think he's so good in this movie. He's a little fucking stinker. He's the
He
biggest
is a little
stinker
stinker.
in cinematic history.
Yeah.
Obviously, Amadeus wins. Next up, we have The Killing Fields, directed by Roland Joff. I'm not
Sounds
saying his last
violent.
name right. The real life story of a friendship between two journalists, an American and a Cambodian, during the bloody Khmer Rouge takeover of Cambodia in 1975, which led to the death of 2 to 3 million Cambodians during the next 4 years until Pol Pot's regime was toppled by the intervening Vietnamese in 1979.
Damn.
Sounds, I don't know, sounds sad.
Probably would have guessed that it would be like, what's the movie where they say I would imagine Field of Dreams, but with like chainsaws or something.
Right. Texas Chainsaw Field of Dreams.
And when is that coming?
Kevin Costner's getting on it, don't worry.
Thank God.
Next up, we have his final film. We'll cover two of his movies eventually. We have A Passage to India, directed by David Lean, one of the greats. Based on the E.M. Forrester book, which I've read and
Oh.
is fine. Uh,
Glowing.
has some good stuff, has some fucking boring stuff. Set during the period of growing influence of the Indian independence movement in the British Raj, the story begins with the arrival in India of a British woman, Miss Adela Quested,
Adele?
who is joining her fiance, a city magistrate named Rani Hislop.
Oh.
She and Rani's mother, Mrs. Moore, befriend an Indian doctor, Aziz H. Ahmed.
Okay.
The book's fine. I don't know.
It sounds a little dry.
It's a little dry.
Yeah.
It's a little dry. It's got some good stuff in it though. But
Like put some sauce on that. Put some sauce on that pasta.
next up, we have Places in the Heart, directed by Robert. Oh, is that what they say in that song?
Oh, they say groove is in the heart.
Okay.
Yeah.
Grooves in the Heart. Directed by Robert Benton, starring Sally Fields. Field. This one's simple. In 1930s Texas, a widow and her family fight to save their home by harvesting cotton. Boring.
It sounds That sounds like remember that movie, The Astronaut Farmer?
Yeah.
That movie was boring.
Is Billy Bob Thornton in that? Who's in that?
I don't know. I don't really remember what it's about. I started like wanting to watch it so badly that I was like, "What is this?" I already forgot everything you just said. I'll
Yeah,
pass on
so did
that
I.
one.
Something about like Texas or something.
Like, what the hell is going on? Did Back to the Future come out? Like, give me something else. Like, what else?
Came out the next year.
Fuck. Shit.
Or it came out in '85, but it would have been up for the '86. I think it got a screenplay nomination. I don't think it got a Best Picture nomination though.
Damn.
Probably got
I
some
need,
like special effects Oscars.
I need something in this field though. I need something in this killing field that's gonna get the. I gotta give this Oscar to somebody.
The Oscars is nothing if not a killing field.
Truly of the highest
Um,
caliber.
Finally, the last nominee. We just covered recently one of his movies, a Norman Jewison joint. This one's called A Soldier Story. He directed In the Heat of the Night. If
Eh.
you're confused.
Did you gonna say if you could remember? I was like, yeah, we just did that last week.
If your little itty bitty brain can remember that, can you remember that?
No, I can't remember what I had for breakfast.
No, you're very smart and I love you.
Right back at you.
In a rural town in Louisiana, a black master sergeant is found shot to death just outside the local army base. Military lawyer Captain Davenport, also a black man, is sent from Washington to conduct an investigation. Facing an uncooperative chain of command and fearful black troops, Davenport must battle with deceit and prejudice in order to find out exactly who really did kill the master sergeant.
All right,
Um,
take it.
Sounds good. I'd watch that.
Take it. Congratulations. We just won the Oscar. What's
Really,
it called?
A Soldier Story.
Yeah. Could have had a better title, maybe. But yeah, I'll give you the Oscar, sure.
Personally, I think Amadeus is Best Picture worthy. What do you think?
Not too much. Not too much, Al.
Really?
Yeah. My opinion doesn't matter. You know that. You know that. You know that, of course.
Mm-hmm.
You know whose opinion does matter?
No.
The opinion of the people. The folks. Of the internet. You ever been?
I heard about it. I read about it in a magazine.
Well, I read about some reviews about this particular film, Amadeus, via the internet. Would you like to hear what some people had to say about this film?
Yes.
Give me the name of somebody who's pretty good with wordplay.
Barry Foot.
Barry Foote says, 2 stars. A more appropriate title would be I'm a Dumbass. Prestige biopics, which became Foreman's specialty after this, are the archetypal Oscar movie and has never been my cup of tea. It seems what most people are responding to are the lavish production values. The movie appears formidable because the opulent sets are so expensive, but let's forget about the set design. As a friend recently said, you know it's going to rain Oscars when you see F. Murray in a 20-pound mask and makeup. And it did. This movie won a lot of awards, didn't it?
I mean, so far I know 3: actor, director, picture. But
That's a trifecta if I ever saw one.
yeah, those are some of the bigger ones.
Give me the name of someone who's... I feel a little cheeky this morning.
Clara Bardot.
Clara Bardot says, 1 star. More like I'm a Bordius. LMAO, take off those wigs. You look like a bunch of damn fools. Which I feel like is more of a critique on the 18th century than anything else.
Why did they wear the wigs? What is that?
It was a sign of class. It was a sign of your wealth. It was, weirdly enough, I don't know why. To just be hot and itchy all the time was a sign of fortune.
More like a sign of misfortune, am I right?
Right. I mean, nowadays, I guess we have the same principles, except it's just with, I don't know, fucking Givenchy or whatever.
Who?
Louis Vuitton. Ever heard of her?
Oh.
Give me the name of someone who's living under the sea.
Sebastian.
Sebastian says 4.5 stars. Look at you, a little maybe a brother of yours.
This movie sucks.
4.5 stars. A retelling of Squidward and SpongeBob's relationship through the contempt maelstrom of music.
That's a beautiful review.
That's a beautiful review, honestly. Because, yeah, I feel like that is accurate to say. Last one I'll read. Give me the name of somebody who's making a really good point.
You know what? You.
Thanks, man. I said 4 stars. Well, I wouldn't say that. 4 stars. Not naming this movie after Salieri is such a good joke.
Is that by David Ehrlich?
Yes. Who is that?
He's a critic I read. He's a critic at I think IndieWire. I follow him on Letterboxd. He's a really good critic. His reviews are always very insightful.
Okay, I guess I'll read another one then.
You're like, that was the lamest thing I've ever heard. I have to salvage this episode.
That's getting cut. Give me the name of instead give me the name of somebody who's feeling a little presumptuous.
You for thinking that criticism is frankly bad. Yet you
Criticism.
host a criticism podcast.
This is not criticism, this is discussion. They're two different things.
Fine.
I said half a star. Yawn. Mozart? More like Moat's fart. And that is the voice of the people.
Yeah.
That is truly the voice.
Like if Mozart somehow came back,
Yeah.
first of all, we'd be like, holy shit, zombie.
We'd be like, what are you
But-
doing? Yeah.
But it would be so funny because like he would go on Letterboxd and it would be like,
I'm sure he would.
I would never go see one of his stupid, boring ass plays. Like nobody was saying stuff like that back then. They were just saying like, it wasn't for me. I found it distasteful. It was always like,
Yeah.
nobody was ever like, that was fucking boring and sucked.
Meanwhile, someone else called this the hardest movie to get hard to. That's a real review that somebody left.
This is a subtextually horny movie, I'd say.
Yeah, I think so.
Um,
Listen, that's all I got.
all right. Well, thank you for that. Always a joy to hear what the people have to say.
It's important.
Next week, should we open it? Should we
Open
open
what?
the green book?
It's time. It
We
really
got-
is.
We gotta open the green book.
Last week we shit on it so much, and it's like, well, we gotta. I feel like we have to see this in order to truly
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
And we got to go in with a clean slate. I'm going in.
It's gonna
with
be our
no
longest
expectations.
episode by far.
Why?
It's got to be 3. We have to do a deep dive. We have to go second by second.
We're doing frame by frame analysis of the Green Book. Is it the Green Book or is it just Green Book?
It's just green book.
Okay, it's just Facebook. Got it.
So next week we will be opening Peter Farley. Is it Peter Farley?
Like Peter Fartley.
There you go.
Yeah.
Peter Farley's
I'm swarming up.
absolute upset Oscar win. We're opening the green book.
Let's do it.
I'm so excited. I think let me see. Is it on Max? If I have to pay for this, I'm gonna be fucking livid. I have to pay for Green Book.
You specifically have to pay.
Yeah, it's saying error.
All right.
All right. So next week, prepare for that one.
Done.
As an Italian, I think I have some say in the representation of Italians in that movie, but I guess we'll see. Anyway.
You sure do.
In the meantime, eat a meatball sub, but take out all the meatballs and put a hot dog in it.
Yes. I've been saying that.
See you next week, Wieners.
Or not.
Or not. Maybe we give up. Maybe Amadeus is the one that breaks us.
1, 2, 3, 4. These boys only want the best stuff. They want the cream of the crop. They don't want none of that Michael Bay shit. They want the shit that bops. Oscar bait, black and white. Maybe something French. If it's got more than one explosion, honey, put that shit on the bench. Oscar Wieners. Oscar Wieners. Oscar Wieners. These boys are the Oscar Wieners. Oscar Wieners.
Imagine Green Book is the one that causes us to quit.
Yeah, we're like, we can't do this anymore.